Thank you all for joining us Monday. We got some updates to the configurator, the new configurator we'd like to show you. And with us today is Sam Dobus. You've heard from Sam a few times. Sam Dobus is one of our global graduates. He's been working there in Pittsburgh for going on a year now. He's done a lot of projects for the company and a lot of things that enhance our tools and products that we have available to help us design.
My name is Sam. Had an opportunity over the last few months to work with the configurator development team, Keith and Mark. Been working on kind of an improvement, a little bit of an add-on for the configurator. So I just wanted to take some time to show that to everybody and kind of show everybody where everything's at and how to use it. If you all were on Keith's configurator training a few weeks, month ago, a while ago now, I'm losing track of time. I had a quick opportunity to talk that this was coming. We're at a point now where we're ready to release it, so go ahead and just kind of talk about this for a little bit. In this training, I'm just going to go through a little bit of a background on kind of what exactly the platform is, and then I'm going to talk about what that means in context for us. We're not necessarily using all of the features, so I'm going to kind of talk about in our context what that's going to look like. I'll talk about the products that are going to be supported for right now. As you know, we're migrating configurators from the old platform to the new platform. So this add-on is going to kind of expand as the products get migrated. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then I'm going to do a demo. And then at the end, we'll have time for some questions. So just a little bit of a background here on what exactly this is. CPQ, or our new configurator platform, has a section of the configurator called Commerce. And basically it's another side of the same coin that the configurator is on. So on one side you have the configuration software that Keith and Mark are working on, and then there's also a built-in e-commerce platform that I've been doing most of the work in, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. It pulls product info from the configurators into a transaction. And I just wanted to take a second to mention here that the e-commerce platform that is built in is pretty extensive, and it is quote to order. It does a lot, and we're still learning about its capabilities and what it can do. The document generation tool that I'm going to show you today is really just one part of what it's capable of. And we may expand and grow how we choose to use the e-commerce side of the platform as the configurators grow and as we decide how we would like to handle this moving forward. So just wanted to mention that this is really just one small part of what this is capable of. So that's what it is, and then what that means for us, how we're going to use it for right now. This is actually a slide off of when I had a chance to tell everybody that this was coming. This is the same slide here just to reiterate what this is going to be used for. It's going to be proposal generation, mostly for higher dollar amount quotes and items. We're focusing on IH&S products, circuit heaters, duct heaters, control panels, things like that. And that is subject to grow as configurators are migrated or based on feedback that we get from you all. Obviously, this is a tool for you to use to make your job easier. So if there's something that you feel like a product should be added and it's not, that's obviously something that we're open to feedback on. Just to be clear, this is not going to replace the extranet eQuote. This is going to be more similar to a long form quote that you may have seen if you submitted a request and it went through our process solutions group. This is kind of a long form quote for configurable items. It's going to be essentially an alternative configuration summary format. It's going to be, have some data sheets and look a little bit cleaner and a little more professional than just the configuration summary might on its own. And anyone who's tried to copy and paste a circulation heater configuration summary into an extranet line comment has seen this error message before. And then you kind of have to decide what you want to cut out and what you want to leave in, or put it on a Word document and attach it. So this would mitigate some of those issues there. So as of right now, there are 3 product lines that are supported by this feature. Basically, this is directly related to the products that have been migrated to the new configuration platform, and that is the medium voltage panels, the boilers, and then the ADH and ADHT duct heaters. And we have in the pipeline the LTFX configurator is getting worked on right now by Mark, and as he continues to develop that and wrap that up, I'm also working on building a data sheet and working the LTFX into this functionality as well. So like I said, there will be more to come with this. This is just the products that are available right now that we wanted to start with, but subject to grow. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a bit of a demo for everybody. Just go ahead and get that set up.
Yeah, and you heard Sam mention Mark and Keith. Keith Camerood and Mark Hagemeyer are the other two on the configuration development team. So if you have questions, requests for login, that type of thing, those are your contacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me via phone or email if you have any questions about this in particular, or if you start to use the platform and aren't sure about anything, please feel free to reach out. So this should look familiar to most people. This will be the landing page, the home screen for the new configurator. And I'll basically just run through a configuration and show you how to add it to the transaction and generate the document. So like I said, boilers is one of the currently supported product lines. So we'll go ahead and configure a boiler. And I'm just going to click through this real quick and get a valid design. Okay, so we have a valid boiler design. Go ahead and approve the design. Tells me it's already been designed. There's already a part number for it. So we are good to go. And then there's going to be a button in the top right-hand corner that says Add to Quote. And we're going to want to click that, and that is going to land us onto the transaction page. So from here, there's going to be a few pieces of information that you're going to have to tell the system. The quote number is going to be the first item on this page. This is going to be the extranet eQuote number. Like I said, this is, as of right now, not meant to replace that, but just supplement it. So you are, for traceability and to have all your ducks in a row, you're still going to need to create the extranet eQuote. We are sharing login information right now, so this is likely not going to have your name. You go ahead and put your name in there. And then there is a section for commercial terms and conditions and field service terms as well. So while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and put US T's and C's and US field service on there. On the line item itself, you have an opportunity to put a discount in and change the quantity. And as you can see, the discount updates the net price on the line, and discount and quantity update the total list and total net prices at the bottom. And then there is a save button on the top ribbon. You want to go ahead and save your transaction. There is a little bit of a database, and you can go back and retrieve this transaction at a later point. If you do not save it, it will not be available for you to retrieve. I'll show you how to access that in a little bit, but I just wanted to mention that there, that you, as of right now, do need to come up here and click the save button. Now from here, if you select the checkbox on the left-hand side on that particular line item, there's a few actions that you can do at the bottom here. You can copy the line, so go ahead and do that. Make 2 copies. You likely wouldn't need to do that, but I just wanted to show you a couple other functions here. You can also remove a line, so you can do that by selecting that same checkbox and then clicking Remove Transaction Line. You could just as easily remove a transaction line by using this little red button on the left-hand side that says Delete. It'll ask you if you want to delete. You say OK. If you click the checkbox and say Remove Transaction Line, it doesn't ask you a second time if you want to remove it. Then from here, you will also be able to add another line item. So go ahead and do that. And we'll put an ADH on it this time. And you can, just in the same way as you could retrieve a configuration by part number, you can do that here and add it to the quote via part number. I have a previously configured part number that I have written down here. So just wanted to show you that you could also retrieve via part number. You'll want to display your price BOM config summary. Make sure you pull that price in. And then up at the top here, just to be clear, add to transaction is going to take this part number and put it onto the transaction that we've already created. Return transaction is going to leave this behind and just send you back to the transaction without adding any part number to the quote. And then the add to quote button is actually going to take this part number and put it on a completely new transaction. So for right now, we are going to want to add to transaction. Just going to put this part number onto the quote that our boiler is on. And there it is. Go ahead and save again. And then you can also reconfigure lines from here as well. This can be done with this little gear button right here, or you could also, again, select the checkbox and then click the reconfigure button down at the bottom. So that's going to spit us back out into the configurator, and I'll just go ahead and create a similar to. Maybe customer came back and said they wanted 480 volts. So we'll approve the design. This has already been designed. That's our new part number right there, ending in 67. And then the update button is going to update this screen, the configurator. You can feel free to choose that, especially if maybe the price didn't pull in or model number didn't pull in. You click update and it'll refresh. But save is what is going to update the part number on the transactions. You can see we now have part number ending in 67. Let's go ahead and save that again. Obviously cancel transaction, delete transaction functionality at the top here. But this generate proposal button is what is actually going to create the document. Let's go ahead and click that. And just a quick note here, you do have to have pop-ups enabled in your browser because this Word document does come up in a separate window as a pop-up. So you may see a note at the top of your browser, and you may need to enable pop-ups for this site. In the other window, my computer is opening the Word document. It's just taking a second.
Sam, speaking of opening documents, I know the previous configurator was better in Explorer. What is the, I know you've covered this earlier, different training. What's the recommended browser to use with this?
Yeah, I think Keith may have run through this in some of the old trainings. I am using Chrome, and I think it works well in Chrome. Correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, I think you're on the call, but I believe he said he's used Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. I think he's run through a bunch of different browsers, and they've all worked well. So
okay. Yeah, it's pretty universal. That's good.
Yep. So here, we'll drag this window over. So this is the document that was generated. It comes out as a Word document. I'll go ahead and click this Enable Editing button. This will be a document that you can edit and make changes to. And then you'd want to save it as a PDF to send to the customer. So on the front page here, it just has our corporate address. This is the quote number that you would put in on the transaction page, and this is the name that you would put in on the transaction page as well. If you don't, this will say field sales or whatever the name associated with the login credentials that you're using. There's a quick little blurb here that just says thanks for choosing Chromalox, and it again references the quote number. On the second page, there's a quick little table of contents, again references the quote number, And you know, the expiration date on that quote number is the one that we're going to want to stick with. Shows the part numbers, model numbers, quantity, net price per line, and then net total. And then this is the data sheet for the boiler. This is line 1 on our transaction. And then line 2 is the summary for the ADH. And then we selected US commercial terms and conditions as well as US field service. So here's our T's and C's. And these are going to look, like I said, these were taken and modified directly off of AE's long form quote. So everything should match up. They're directly derived from those terms and conditions, so should all be consistent. And then this is the same field service options that would be on the longhand quote as well. And then obviously, if you did not select terms and conditions, you know, if you were to select none, those sections would not show up on your document. I just wanted to make a really quick note, you know, because this is a Word document, you can come in here and put additional notes if you wanted to provide more detail or you know, put a note to the customer. You can do that here. And then, like I said, you could save it as a PDF and send it off to them. I just want to double check real quick here and make sure that there wasn't anything else that I wanted to talk
Essentially,
Okay,
it generates a submittal sheet for any of the items quoted, which is really nice.
Right. Yeah, I think that was everything. So the only other thing that I wanted to mention really quick was like I mentioned before, you should have access to the transaction that you just created. So, you know, for whatever reason you got auto logged out or you navigated back to the home screen for some reason you didn't mean to, you can click the drop-down menu in the top right-hand corner, and there's going to be a selection Oracle Quote to Order Manager. And that will drop you on a screen that is going to show your transaction history. And this is the transaction that we were working on most recently here, so you can get back to it. Again, you do need to click save in order for the transaction to get pushed to that little database there, so you will want to click save. And I believe that is about it. If anyone has any questions, I know I kind of jumped around a little bit, so if anyone would like me to clarify anything or go back to anything that I did, please let me know.
Hey, Sam. Hey, this is Dean Strausser, RTSM.
Dean?
When you do the quote number that you want to assign the item to, does it have to be like this? Your quote number has -00. Do you need to make sure you're on the latest rev, or does it automatically assign another rev to it, and you don't just have to put the quote number without the dash?
Yeah, so this is just a writable field. There isn't any logic behind this. So you could omit the dashes, or if you wanted to put the rev number in for the e-quote that you were on, you would have to type that in. And there isn't anything behind it right now to update that rev number. There is like an internal revision calculator that's in the configurator, but it doesn't change this text field here. Hope that answers your question.
Sam, to continue with that topic and Dean's question, so by that rationale, we could essentially put budget in there or proposal, or if we didn't have a quote number, or if it was a longer out project, or does it have to be numeric? I guess is my question.
No, I don't believe I have a numeric. Yeah, it can be whatever you would like it to be.
Yeah, that might be handy moving forward too.
Right, if you wanted to get somebody a budgetary number.
Good question, Dean. Any other questions?
Hi, Sam. This is Keith Piker. I have a couple of questions.
Okay, sure.
So I think you said first thing you have to do is you have to take out, well, you would go to the traditional system to create a quote number, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so then you create the quote number, and as you guys were just talking, you can put that in there. Does this, so this system that you just described, that ultimately doesn't get connected to the original e-quote number? You have to attach, you create a document, then you have to electronically attach it in the traditional system, or how do the two things get connected together, or do they not?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for right now, this is not connected to the extranet. They don't communicate back and forth, just the same way that the configurator doesn't communicate with extranet, it just communicates with JDE. So yeah, so you would create an e-quote, you would configure a part number, and then you would generate this document and likely attach it to the email that you were sending the customer.
Okay, so if you've got a quote that's got, multiple items, some are, configured items, some are just 6-digit PCN items, I'm just wondering how that would flow. I guess you'd give the customer the traditional quote, but then maybe attach the formal, the long form version just for a couple of those items on the quote, I guess.
Yeah, you could do that. We've had some discussions about this, and like I said, we're still learning about what this can do and how we want to use it. It's entirely possible for us to include data sheets and information on, let's say, a support stand. So if you were quoting, maybe you had a 9-digit or a 6-digit for a support stand that wasn't a configurator item, so you wouldn't be able to add it here. But we might be able to create a checkbox to say, like, I want to include a support stand with this, and it could add it to the document. But yeah, as of right now, if you had items on your e-quote that were not configurable, you would not be able to add them to the document. So you could attach the whole thing and send it to the customer and say, this is in reference to line 2, or if you wanted to, because this Word document is editable, if you wanted to, you could just send them this page. It's kind of flexible in that way. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. This does not communicate with the extranet.
And so you can't, when you want to add the transaction is the entire thing, right? It's not, so a transaction could have multiple lines, right?
Correct.
And then, so when you enter, for example, from here, you can't add a 6-digit part number because it's not a configurable item, right? Or a 9-digit.
Yeah, you could, the only part numbers that you could add would be ones that were from the configurator.
Okay. And then the difference between a transaction and a quote is, I guess, you only kind of use add to the quote once. And then after that, it becomes a transaction, I guess, after that.
Yeah, the wording that they use on the buttons was a little off-putting to me too. But yeah, when you initially create, and I may have made a mistake there interchanging the word quote and transaction as well. So my apologies if I did that. But yeah, when you click the add to quote button, that generates and starts a transaction. And then from there, you're adding to transaction, removing from transaction. That makes sense. And from the configurator screen, if I came down here and clicked add line item, if I configured a new item, if I clicked add to quote instead of add to transaction, it would create an entirely new transaction instead of adding that line to your pre-existing one.
Okay.
So yeah, that part is a little bit confusing and might take some getting used to, so I'm glad you asked that question.
All right. Thanks, Sam.
Sure thing. Yeah, anyone else have any questions?
Good question, Keith. Anybody else have any questions for Sam? Any more thoughts? I think having the medium voltage panel description's a big one. All right. Well, remember,
one more question again.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
So I'm just going back to the standard quote format. So on the standard quote format, if I had 3 lines in the standard quote format, one was, the first line's a sensor, the second line is a medium voltage, and the third line is a a control, an ITLS, would I still then, like, there'd be some overlap? I would have it like the standard quote, but the description for lines 2 and 3, which would be, say, medium voltage and an ITLS for line 3, there kind of wouldn't be any description there. I would just have this other long form proposal attached. How would it look to the customer? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, this would be a situation where you had some configurable items and some not configurable items, and what you would send to the customer.
Yeah, would the configurable items even be on the first, standard quote? Would it even be mentioned or not?
Yeah, I mean, you could, if all the items that you were looking to quote the customer were configurable, this would have all the information that the extranet e-quote would have, I think, except for like an expiration date and maybe a couple things like that. So you could just send them this. Our kind of initial approach to this was to add some detail to more complicated and higher dollar amount products. So I think the initial vision, there would be some overlap. Like, you would have some terms and conditions on the extranet e-quote, and then this would reiterate those terms and conditions unless you selected like none from this drop-down menu. But it was the idea was to have this supplement the extranet quote that you were going to send them.
Okay, so say we had a quote that was just configurable items, just to make sure that the standard e-quote system is visible, in the future. We would configure the item. You'd have this long form proposal, but we'd want to make sure that we, use the standard old form to put the value of the product in there, so that in the future, when we look up the history of the quote number and the value, we have that information, because there's no lookup for these older quotes. For this long form system, there's no system to look stuff up.
Correct. Yeah, we want to have the e-quotes created in extranet for the exact reason that you just mentioned.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, another good question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam? I think, as Sam kind of mentioned, it's a little bit of a build out, right? They're constantly adding things as they go along. So
yeah, it will be. Like I said, this is kind of our first chunk that we wanted to get out there and start, testing and getting feedback on. But as the configurators continue to get added and we continue to work with the e-commerce side of the platform, as it's entirely possible and likely that the way that we use this and the functionality will change and improve. So yeah, so there should be more to come, I would expect.
sure, as time goes, the dots will be connected. But for now, data sheets, submittals, that's essentially what you're showing us today, which is really good. Any other questions for Sam as we kind of get towards the end of the time here? Okay. Before you go, again, there's Sam's contact information. If you have feedback, questions, comments, obviously, get a hold of Sam. He'll point in the right direction. There's also Keith Cameroon and Mark Hagemeyer working on this as well. A couple things before you go. The trainings, as always, I would like to point everyone to the YouTube pages for the trainings. I'm migrating that over to SharePoint, but all the trainings are available. Speaking of all the trainings, we do have Programming 201 available. I just got that uploaded recently, so more of your controllers and the functionality and how that works. We mentioned the configurator training that was done, like Sam said, about 2 months ago. We went through 12 new configurators. So there's a long list, but they're each in there. How to log in, how to use them. Some other trainings that we've had throughout the year, we'll start facilitating more and more. One I did want to point out that we did just recently was the self-sufficient selling strategy, and that came with some customer or some factory videos for your customers. That will be on there as well. It's a good way to share with your customers, especially given the time of COVID and travel and restrictions. So we're doing a lot of stuff this way. And then also, if you stick around here in another half hour, we have a presentation from Jeremy Moreau on contract negotiation, specific to Spirex. I know there's some questions about who to go for what and where approvals come from, and he will clear that up for us here later today. So I hope you all join us for that. And if you haven't yet, please either email me or accept the invite for the Direct Connect update training on Wednesday with Mark Wheeler and Dave Taylor. They're going to review and go through some of the updates, and more importantly, compare our Direct Connect steam generators to electrode steam generators that are out on the market, and give us a better understanding of the advantages and how to go about selling those. So definitely wanted to get that on everybody's radar. Appreciate everyone for joining us. And Sam, good job. Anybody have any other questions for Sam on the documentation portion of the configurator, or any other configurator questions for that matter? Well, we'll stick around for a few minutes. If you do have questions, please ask. Otherwise, hope to see you all in 30 minutes for the contract negotiation discussion with Jeremy.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Sam.
Sam, good job, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.